Welcome to episode 425 of the Tilehurst End podcast, where we look ahead to the 2025-26 season in League One. Despite the lack of signings this week, we've been able to secure the services of a chap whose voice is smoother than peanut butter on white toast. Joining myself and Rossi Pops this week is Wimb. Wimb, how are you?
Oh, you know how to make a guy feel good. Great to be back on the show, and my second Tilehurst End podcast in the space of about 2 weeks.
I know.
So I'm going to come out of semi-retirement to probably 3/4 retirement or 1/4 retirement at this rate. But no, it's great to be back on with you guys, and thanks for having me.
Yeah, if you haven't already checked it out, the podcast extra was back last week with James End. Some fantastic little bits in there, really. Really good to get James back on. And, of course, Wim doing his pod extras. And, you know, this is the house that Wim built. So we're always opening the door to Wim to come on in and do what he does best, which is talk about Reading Football Club. Ross, I followed Tonki United on Instagram. You're not following me back. Why is that?
I'm sorry. Yeah. I'll get that done right away. I thought about wearing the new kit for Tonki United, which is my sort of amateur team, if you will, over here in the States. But you know what? It's all about Reading today. It's all about the preview for the season. So I've got last year's third kit on. I think we're recording right as a third kit may well be revealed later on tonight. So I thought I'd put on the third kit as a way of celebrating. But yeah, I'll get you followed up. Don't worry. The big man, Tonka, the Bulldog himself, he'll follow you back. Don't worry.
He honestly looked great. He wears it well for a big man. He really does.
He does. So, yeah, he's got a great touch for a big man too. Stole the ball off me yesterday while I was playing in the garden. So look out for him.
What a cheeky little chap. Talking of cheeky chaps, massive thanks as always to ZZ Films and Voldemar, who again allows us to do what we do best. He's got a lot of art. He's a very busy man at the moment.
He's got a new series coming out soon, and it's all about balls. Is all I'll say about that for now. And we'll reveal the name of the show on a future program on the
I just said it.
Oh, you did. Oh,
yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah, there you go. But still.
Anyway, this is a family show, but it's going to be out soon. And he's got articles in the Times, and also he's massive. He's absolutely huge, this bloke. So thank you to him. And, of course, the Amazons, who you would have heard welcoming you to the show. My Blood. They might be at the Purple Saddle right now. We don't know. It's wrapped in secrecy. We weren't told of anything. So, that, you know, that's where we are. We're going to get on with it. 425 episode of the big fat pre-season roundup preview of the season. You know what I'm talking about. Little break. We'll be back. Right, gentlemen. We're not going to dwell on pre-season at all. Not going to talk about it.
I didn't even realise there was one. What are you talking about?
Exactly the attitude we need on this. We're going to talk first of all. So it's a slightly different pod, as you can probably imagine. So we're going to talk about us first of all as a club, where we're at. That's going to be the kind of recap of the summer, where the squad is, how we're shaping up, and the overall predictions for where we think we'll end up in the league. And then there's a few little bits of news we'll go through. Hopefully by then we'll be able to exclusively reveal the third shirt in audio format only. And then kind of in the preview, we're going to talk about where the rest of the league is. A few little things we've picked out to talk about, and so we're going to start with squad depth, first of all, and the squad in general. Well, I'm going to come to you first of all, mate. Where are we where you kind of anticipated you thought we would be? And are we where we should be, if that makes sense?
I think it's no to both, but with that important caveat of it's not absolutely unexpected. I think that obviously the new ownership came in, they had grand ambitions and big plans, and you know the early signs were great, getting O'Connor signed and getting Wingy signed up for New Deal and Pereira kept, and it's just kind of stalled. And I think the reality, and I'm going to shout out his article early, Sim up on the Tilehurst End's put a really good article up called First Steps, kind of giving an overview of the summer, a great written accompaniment to this very pod that you're listening to, and sort of just summing up, you know, the early steps that we took, and also just the difficulty of where we are in the pecking order. And I talked about this with James on the pod extra. I think all of us as fans need to take stock of where we actually are as a football club anymore. I mean, look, just by simple ranking alone, we are outside the top 44 clubs in this country. And if you add in the positions that we finished last year, we are the 51st biggest club in this country. Therefore, you've got 50 teams ahead of us in the pecking order, not to mention even those who finished maybe below us, teams like Huddersfield, who've got that extra financial might to go out and spend. So for me, the biggest problem, I'm skipping probably wildly ahead in where we are and kind of the reaction, the biggest disappointment for me has been the fans that are really getting agitated and aggravated with the club for the business they've done and the depth we've got in this squad. Because for me, it's losing sight of that whole brick by brick approach that Rob and everyone has kind of preached. They preached this financial discipline. They preached this living within our means. But now we've obviously come to the point where, you know, the proof is in the pudding, and we're following up that mantra by not going ahead of ourselves, not signing Alfie May for over £1 million, not giving in to agents that are trying to add a few quid onto deals at the last minute. And it's frustrating. It's frustrating as a fan. Look, I want to get really excited. There's nothing better than looking forward to that brand new signing and being eagerly excited. And with the greatest respects to Marco Mani, it's, you know, up front, we've not got a lot to get excited about. So it's a very long-winded way of saying, no, the depth isn't there. I looked at the substitutes that came on against Portsmouth, and I think that tells the story. Once again, we're looking at a first team, and that's pretty much it. So we're not where we need to be, but I'm not entirely surprised at that fact.
I think it's very difficult, isn't it? That there is some agitation, and it's, you know, it's not for us to say whether that's right or wrong, not for me to say it as co-host of this pod, but you know, that there is a line of thought that whilst Coig has done very well to stabilize parts of the ship off the pitch, you know, the media department, for example, you know, the way that he wants to structure the kind of the media overall within the club, you know, some of the revenue that's coming in, which, you know, some people might find controversial, some people might not, but it's still money through the door. The problem really is that he's kind of almost put us under pressure with those early interviews. And, you know, we were guilty of that on this pod potentially in terms of getting him on early, but the enthusiasm and the way he said it's going to be fantastic, it's going to be this, it's that. People just assume now that there is money floating around, and that might force, you know, agents' hand. It might force some of those kind of free agents that we were involved with. You know, Noel Hunt said last week that he was looking at players that were waiting for better financial offers because they thought potentially they might get something better from Reading Football Club. I mean, you know, Ross, you made the point off there that we're still a month away from the transfer window finishing, a month and a couple of hours, really, to be honest, because it's the 31st of August.
Yep.
But, you know, are there still a lot of things that you feel we need to do, and how urgent are those things, basically?
I've definitely been in like the not really panicking camp all summer, and even with, you know, the perceived like slow kind of building of the squad over the past month. You know, like I haven't really been getting too frustrated yet personally. I did Bluesky post out back on the July 2nd. You know, that I was like, a bunch of basically dates that important players for Reading signed. And that was the 13th of July in 2023. This is all in 2023, but 13th of July for Nibs, 21st of July for Wing, 22nd of July for Savage. Those 3 dates have now obviously all passed in 2025. So we are now getting to a point where I think you could reasonably expect to have done a little bit more. But what I think I'll say is that, you know, kind of living within our means and living within, you know, a plan that is going to allow us to actually spend money when the opportunity to spend money on the right thing is there, I don't think is a bad thing. I also think that there are some sneaky good signings in there. Now, I think that Porty O'Connor is... I think Porty O'Connor will really be a good signing for Reading. I think we're getting him, you know, at the kind of peak of his development. You know, he's a leader in the dressing room. He can offer us something a little bit different in terms of that long passing ability. And then I also think, you know, it kind of didn't really occur to me until earlier this week when I was working on the you know, the preview and all these kinds of things. I think Liam Fraser is a really good signing for a few reasons. I think he's a good signing just by himself as a player, but I also think what he might allow Noel to do with Wing is actually could be something that really changes our season. So I think that, yes, there, you know, like I can understand why there's some like, like when you hear the owner after this big release of emotion from the new owner coming in, and you hear about what's going to happen with the transfer window, it being spectacular and all of these kinds of things. Yes, maybe you might expect a little bit more, but I think that some of the building blocks that have been put in place have already been pretty good. In terms of like depth that you asked a moment ago, my opinion on that is that it depends where you look in the team. I completely agree that Marco Mani isn't enough at that striker position, and I think that the club actually has a higher opinion of Kelvin Ehibachiman than I have as well. Garcia is probably the guy I would start on the right at the moment, which that's cool, but that kind of tells you a lot about where we're at with depth in the forward line. But looking at the back, I think that the result against Portsmouth could be scary to some fans, because obviously it's a big loss in terms of the score line, and we looked all at sea at points in that particular game. So I just wanted to preface before I say I think we're looking quite strong depth wise with the back four and the center mids. Even if Nibs leaves now, I think that there are enough resources where you could do some pretty interesting things, both in build-up play and actually defensively. You've got Liam Fraser as a guy who wins a lot of aerial duels, and then obviously you've got the big lads in the back with Finley and Porty O'Connor as well. So I'm cautiously extremely optimistic personally, and I do think there's some good depth at the back. But I don't think that we're concerned. I don't think even pre-Portsmouth game, I don't think we would have been at all concerned that Noel Hunt would be able to put together a solid back line. It's about whether he can go forward and get us some goals.
Yeah, and I think one thing to pick up on what you said there, Ross, you talked about the dates when we signed those players. I think that was literally the only window we had that summer, wasn't it? It was between two embargoes, and we just had to rush through all those registrations. Yeah. But what more sticks in my mind, and again, I'm showing my old fart status here, is if you look back to the previous era of what I would call responsible ownership, which is basically pre-Zingarovic now, look at the business Reading did late in those windows. If you go back to 2009-10, when Brendan Rodgers came in, you had those late signings of the likes of Joby McAnuff came in late, Gregor Raziak came in late, who would both play key roles. I think they were both 27th of August. You had Sean Cummings coming in September. The window must have shut in
Pereira as well in 2023, just from that list. When Pereira
exactly.
Came in September.
You go to the following season, and again, it's late because Reading are selling Gylfi Sigurdsson late in that window, so they have to get in the likes of Ian Hart and Zurab Kivanishvili late in that window. And then the following year as well, we have to wait to the end of August to get the likes of Casper Gorks and Adam Lafondra in. And that's, again, it goes back to where we are in the pecking order, that the window's not shut. And if you look at all three of those seasons, okay, the Brendan Rodgers season didn't end with us in the playoffs. We actually came close-ish after Brian McDermott came in, but both 2010-11 and 11-12, we both started those seasons really poorly in August. I think in that promotion winning season, we were second from bottom after losing at home to Watford. You don't need to hit the ground running in August. You don't need to have your absolute settled side barnstorming start to get where you want to be. Don't get me wrong, if the squad's in this position and we're into September, then I'm going to be a bit worried. But recognizing where we are and the ability to get players in, and Noel Hunt's even said today he's looking to hopefully get at least one more in before Lincoln. So I'm not worried now. I think it's what you and Ben have both said. It's where we are when that window shuts in September.
Just to pick up on a point, well, a couple of points when made there. The first one is he is really old, and so am I, because in the week we had to explain to people what the Tilehurst end actually was. So if you don't know, it was the stand behind the goal at Elm Park, which was a stadium the ground, the playing pitch that we used to play on. If you don't know what Elm Park is, and if you don't, you shouldn't be listening to this anyway. But that's how
pointed towards Tilehurst. It was the Tilehurst end.
Exactly.
I had no idea what a Tilehurst end was.
Goodness me. Don't say that on air.
Sorry. And now I co-host this pod. So sorry.
Yeah.
Keeping the law alive.
Yeah.
Exactly. I think you're right. Look, Sim said it, or someone said it off the account on Saturday after the dust had settled a little bit. It is absolutely foolish to write this football club off. When you've got people like Brian Carey, who has done wonders. You know, we've always done okay in the transfer market, you know, give or take. And you pointing out players there coming in late is exactly right. I think, as I go back to my original point, the problem is that we were put under pressure by a very excitable owner who just went, yeah, actually, I want all this and it's going to be amazing. And it just kind of, it doesn't help a very damaged, fractured, nervous, sensitive fan base, to be honest. So, yeah, I think Portsmouth was a shock, you know, given the fact we brought in, you know, Matty Jacob, Finley Burns, Paulie O'Connor. Obviously, Liam Fraser wasn't involved, but, you know, 4 defensive players there. You know, and to put in that sort of performance, like we understand the issues with going forward. We've said that all the way through the summer. The club have identified that they're trying to do something about it. You know, there's been numerous links with various players, you know, up top that we haven't been able to do. But, you know, I'm always of the opinion that you know, those players that we might be looking at, those stronger players, will become available or will still be available potentially towards the end of August, when they're like, well, I need a club now. You know, like I got my mortgage to pay, or I've got, you know, whatever to pay, and I need to go and play football. So we could still be in a stronger position because we might have those positions to fill. So
I think nobody knows really how good of a signing, and I'm going to get his name wrong too, but Daniel Kierewa, is that right? Daniel Kierewa. I don't think anyone really knows how good of a signing that is. I'm not saying that it's a fantastic signing.
I'm just going with Dan K.
Danny K. Yeah. That special K, or no, Danny K. Anyway, so yeah, I think no, it's difficult to know. Like, this is kind of something I was thinking about again when I was making the previews. It's kind of difficult to make signings that get people really excited at this level. Like Alfie May was the name that you mentioned earlier, and he's obviously one of the guys who's gone for a decent amount of money. But like, he's available because Birmingham don't need him, and like, he's surplus to requirements in like a squad like that. And so like, all of these players that are available, even if they're big names, I feel like they're often big names from like a year or two ago, past their prime in the league, you know, when they made that name. So I was looking through Transfermarkt last night too, and there really aren't many teams that have actually gone out and spent more than like 500,000 on a transfer so far this summer. There's a goalkeeper, I think from Spurs, who's come to Huddersfield or something like that. And I'm sure Orient threw a bit of money at Josh Koroma to get him to go over there as well. But no one's making like huge big signings with names that, you know, get you all excited. This is League One. It's another one of those.
It's wages though, Ross, isn't it? I mean,
yeah.
Transfers have moved on so much that outside of the Premier League now, it is all just basically contract length and the amount of wages. I mean, look at the millions and millions of pounds Reading are losing year after year without spending a single penny in the transfer market. And that's all down to the deals that they sign with people. And that is, you know, what, you know, Hunt and Coig and stuff have been talking about in their various media interviews, is they're getting people into the door and thinking that they're going to sign. And then suddenly they're being presented with a contract that, you know, perhaps in their mind, they're thinking, oh, Reading, 25,000 seat stadium, a luxury training ground, new owners, they're going to throw five-figure contracts at us. And it's just not happening. And that's what we're dealing with. Whereas other clubs clearly are in that position, especially those probably coming down from the Championship, that are able to offer that 10 grand a week, 15 grand a week in League One, where our owners are saying, whoa, that's not what we're going to do here.
Yeah.
I mean, there is, there's also a fact of the matter is that really there is, you know, a very youthful fan base who have grown up in a very inflated football environment where money is just thrown around like confetti to very average players. You know, you look at some of the business that Chelsea have done over the years where they've just stockpiled players. And I know we've never been in that ballpark, but that kind of filters down really. And obviously the parachute money and everything else, there's always an expectation amongst that, you know, section of the fan base where you just got to spend money. And you're right, this is what got us into this mess originally. You know, no one, myself included, was complaining when Dion came in and went, right, we're going to sign all these players, and it just keep throwing money at them and go, great, we've got this player, great, we've got this player. What's the contribution? You know, what are they actually doing for this football club, and how are they being able to bring people together? Are they actually playing well on the pitch? Are they a good player? You know, in a lot of cases, they weren't good players. They were names. You know, I'm not going to start throwing people under the bus, but like, they weren't good players for us, you know.
And they weren't
it's
necessarily
very
brought
different.
in with a role in mind, I think, is
Exactly.
something. And so, like, let's look at just thinking a minute about, like, I do think there have been some good signings. And again, Liam Fraser and Porty are the ones I've mentioned. Let's go back to Daniel Kirawa. One of the things that we've complained about a lot, or last season, or I complained about a ton, was that Reading weren't taking nearly enough shots. And that was part of the reason they weren't, racking enough goals, is because they just weren't shooting the ball enough. Daniel Kirawa has a ton of shots per 90, much more than other people in his sort of, in his area last year in the Zweite Bundesliga. So, it was signing players that actually seem to be addressing areas of need on the pitch as well. So, which is something, encouraging, rather than, again, going out looking for a star necessarily.
Yeah, and Brian Carey's been speaking at the pub settlers we've been recording. Ben's nodding away. Some of the quotes.
It's live.
And it's live. It is live. Some of the quotes.
People have missed the hangover going, please don't talk about this. I'm still reeling from last night,
So some of the quotes have been tweeted out by the Tilehurst End. Apparently one of the quotes from Carey is the key is to be able to adapt when talking about Reading being agile. Joe Jacobson was asked how many players will Reading sign. He says they want at least 4 minimum and thinks we'll do that by the end of August. He also doesn't want to clog up the squad to stop the youth development. Yeah. And also the questions were put to Brian about short and medium and long-term aims for recruitment. He said short term, he wants as good a squad as possible. Mediums, not into a position where we're begging for players, get more credibility as a club in the market. And then long-term, he wants us to follow the likes of Wrexham and Ipswich and compete at a higher level. So again, all the right noises to me. When I read that, I can't argue with any of it.
And look, this is going to sound very, very elitist, and it's not. But when I did the Bearwood thing the other week, I had a fairly reasonably lengthy conversation with Joe Jacobson, and he's a good guy. He was honest about where the club is at. He was honest about how difficult he is. He was honest about how hard he's currently working at the moment. And so, there is a lot of people at that football club that know ball and know what the club needs. And I just feel that some of that frustration a little bit is, I keep going back to it, is down to all these media appearances. We're not used to that. It's either been feast or famine for us in that communication. And, I like the communication, but also there's an element of if you're gonna say something and you're gonna give a timeline, get it done in that timeline. Know your flipping audience, guys. Come on, because we've been given so little over the years that when you go, it's going to be this, it's going to be that, and we're going to get it done, and there's going to be 18,000 players coming through the door or whatever. Just get it done. Don't then come back. Oh, it's been a bit difficult. Don't say it in the first place. I get it. I understand it, because they need to stamp their authority on it, and they need to get people engaged, and they need to sell tickets and shirts and everything else. But there's just that balancing act, isn't there, between this is our commitment, this is our plan, this is our process of where we're going to go. So
do you not just think that they're only a couple of signings away, which again they probably thought at some point they had. And if Reading was sitting there and we'd signed 2 extra forwards at this point, we would, as Ross was saying, the rest of the depth is kind of okay. If Reading signed a top line winger and another striker, I think people would be saying, well, this is a window well done. I mean, look, we've signed, 7 players? Or is it 5 and then a couple of contracts? We've got
a lot of loans as well.
Stevens, Burns, O'Connor, Jacob, that's 4. 7 signings in, plus all the contract renewals as well. It's just we started from such a bad position. Don't forget the reason why we had 5 Grim Reapers in the stand for one of the protests, because that's how many players we had guaranteed to be here when this season ended. So we started from such a weak position. That's a lot of recruitment to get in. And of course, when you're combining that with the whole, this is how we want to run the club, this is a wage structure we want to put in place for the long-term benefit of this, to keep the club sustainable. So it's been really difficult. I just think, look, you're absolutely right. It's not up to us to say how fans should be feeling, whether they should be feeling let down or misled or whatever from the various media appearances that the new owners have given. But I really think we're close to already having a good window. And if what Jacobson is saying comes to fruition and we get 4 more signings, plus, we loved how much we used our academy players and saw those young players coming through. And the other point that he mentioned about not blocking their pathway is important as well. So get those 3 or 4 established names in, and we're really not too far. As last season's squad showed, last season's squad wasn't massively deep, and we finished,
Yeah.
on a points total that more often than not would have seen us top 6.
Yeah, and we'll get into predictions later, but with the squad that we have now, I still don't think that there's a chance that Reading finish below 10th personally. Like, I just think that this squad is of a quality that is better than over half the league personally at the moment. Like, I don't think the league is that strong. And I think that, like what you said about the depth last year was enough to get us to 7th. I think the depth this year could be better, especially on the attack, but is enough already to keep us in the top 10 of the league, and more signings would be great.
I like Rob a lot. I want him to succeed. I don't treat him as a savior, because I always maintain someone else would have brought it and they would have done. So, this kind of savior thing is not really for me. But I want him to succeed, because I think in principle he's got some great ideas. And, he was very, very, amiable when he came on the pod, sort of 3-4, whenever it was, probably about 5 weeks ago now. But it was good to have him on there, and he was very, very open. And, I know I'm probably sounding a little bit contradictory here, but at that time, that's exactly what needed to happen with the interviews he was giving to radio stations and everything else, kind of setting out the plan. And I think he's realised that, James picked it up, last week with his article, Wimb, but he's kind of realised actually he can't keep saying these things, and then when they don't come off, it makes him look a little bit silly. But I like him. I hope it succeeds. I hope it works out. I hope he gets us back to where I want to be, which ultimately is the Championship. Anything above that is a huge bonus, to be honest. League One is a blooming hard league, as we're going to talk about later on. But there are still positive signs here. I think we just need to tap into that a little bit more, really. And I think if they can sell this project to a few more players, we'll be okay, So that leads me really to the big question, and on paper, the simplest question. We're going to start with you, Wim. Where do we, as a football club, finish?
Again, until I see the final makeup of this squad, I'm renowned for sitting on the fence. I'm not quite as bad as my former podcasting co-host Johnny Williams, but I still do sit on the fence. If you ask me where this particular squad finishes right now, I would probably say top 10. Where I expect the squad to be by the end of this window, I would be expecting us to push for top 6. Whether we'll end in the top 6, I don't know. But I've got that sneaky suspicion that it will be a little bit like Brian McDermott's first full season of his first spell, where we end up making that playoffs. I think we finished, 5th that season. So I think I'll go for 5th or 6th.
Okay. Ross, where are you sitting with this?
I kind of wanted to hear yours first, because I don't think
me.
Yeah, can I hear yours first? Because I think that
I'll give you the long version, the longer version. So grab a biscuit or whatever.
All right, I'm grabbing.
There is no doubt in my mind that last season, finishing where we finished in 7th was one of the greatest achievements of this football club in a long, long time, because of the fact that there was a point over Christmas when we thought we weren't going to finish the season, because of all the off-field stuff, because of the lack of depth that we had, because of the manager change, because literally everything was against us as a football club. And I don't mean that in terms of, victims or whatever, but everything was just stacked against us. So the fact we were going into the final day and we were still able to get into the playoffs was just incredible. Absolutely. And I still maintain Netflix should make a documentary about last season, because it was just everyone's got a story, right, about that season. What you don't want to do is go backwards. So if they are investing a little bit of money, if there is a few players coming through the door, if there is a bit more of a structure in terms of Noel Hunt having a pre-season, being able to work with the bulk of the squad, you don't want to be finishing or looking like you're finishing mid-table, because that is going to be seen as a backward step by everybody at the club. So for that reason alone, we kind of, the expectations that we do get into the playoffs a little bit. I say a little bit, just get in the playoffs, really, by hook or by crook, just to get there. Not necessarily win them, but just keep building that progress. The other thing that I really want to see is Noel Hunt finishing the season. I want him to be given the time to be able to go, this is my team. This is how I want to do it. It chopped and changed with the the coaching staff last season. That's kind of settled now in terms of where they are with the backroom staff. I really want Noel Hunt to succeed, probably more than I want the team to succeed. But obviously, if he's succeeding, the team's going to succeed. So for me, head and heart says it has to be 6.
Okay. Did you watch
Don't
Burnley?
pull that face.
No, it wasn't a face.
I think they finished 15th because of XG or something.
You guys are both right around where I was last season in terms of optimism.
You was
that was
crazy last season, though.
Correct. Well, but I think the thing is, I think that we still have a lot of players in this team who are some of the best in the league, and I think that a lot will depend on Harvey Nibbs staying.
Exactly, we haven't even mentioned that,
so that's something that I think is worth a caveat in this. Let's say Harvey Nibbs stays, and then I think, actually, Ben, no, let's say Harvey Nibbs stays. I was kind of thinking about whether there's anyone else in the team that we might lose before the end of the transfer window, and if we don't lose one of Nibbs, Elliott, and Savage, then I think we're in a really good spot. I think Reading are going to finish second. I think that this will be a season that looks something like Burnley's season last year. Here we go. Yeah, pause.
This is the point where you need to watch the YouTube version, because Wimb's still in shock at that. I nearly fell off my stool.
Yeah.
Second? Are you just doing this?
Reading finished second.
Never would have seen that kind of positive back in my day on this podcast.
We get thrown out, honestly. Anyway, go on, carry on.
I think there are, again, this is very much with the caveat that Nibbs stays. And again, if Nibbs doesn't stay, then I think that what you guys are saying about playoffs is still is just about bang on. But let's say that Nibbs stays. I think Reading finished second this year. I don't think Reading are going to lose many games at all this year. I don't think that many teams are. I don't think there are going to be many teams that are able to hurt Reading that often in a game. I think that Reading will control or at least be able to block for large periods of the game. I think that the issue is going to be going forward and whether they can consistently score. But in terms of Reading's quality, I think that Pereira is going to be a top 3 goalkeeper in the division again. I think that Wing is going to be probably the best ball striking midfielder in the league. I think that Porty O'Connor and Finlay and Burns are fantastic signings. I think that, it's great to hear about not wanting to block the pathway for the youth. There's youth coming through that maybe we haven't thought about in the team yet, but that could also mean Garcia and Kelvin Ehibachiman, who they've just handed a 2-year contract to. Whether the front 3 looks like it's looked over the past few weeks, and that could be concerning because we haven't scored a goal. I think that Kelvin and Garcia might come good this season, and I think that Garcia, especially on the right, I think if you watch versus Spurs, there are moments where they begin sending 2 people out to mark him because he's causing one defender so much trouble. If we can, we're going to be a team that relies on one player pulling something out, like an amazing goal from Savage or Wing, or sort of, like a player winning a 1v1 on the outside of the box or something like that. I think we're going to be a team that relies on that kind of stuff going forwards. And that's going to make us, too unpredictable, not maybe consistent enough to win the division because we won't be able to put away enough games early enough. But I really think that especially as the season gets going, this team is just going to be very, very solid. I also think that one of the solutions that Noel is going to stumble onto relatively early for the scoring or the lack of scoring is moving Wing forward, and I think that the signing of Liam Fraser allows him to do that. Liam Fraser is a guy who gets through a lot of passing, gets through a lot of tackling, but can also dribble on the ball as well, so to bring it forward. So he's kind of like a bit more experienced Michael Craig when he first came into the Reading lineup, and that could finally be a player that allows Wing to play more in that sort of 8 role. And then, if we keep the same formation, and I have a sneaking feeling we might not later this season, but if we keep the same formation, even if we lost Nibbs, you've got Elliott and Savage, who could play either side of Wing, or you could play, you could play Fraser and Wing and Savage together, and that's still a really strong midfield. So I just think that there's a lot of good quality in there already. I think that the signings that have been brought in with a specific game plan in mind, and really that's to make the team solid. I think that what we saw during that 10-game unbeaten run last year is going to be a lot of what we're going to see. I think buckle down, Reading fans, because we could be in for quite a lot of turgid football this season. But I also think that Reading are going to win, a lot of 1-0 and 2-1 games and things like that. But also they're going to drop points in a lot of frustrating ways. So I think they're going to finish second. I think that they will grow into the season. I think that they'll always be in the top 10 or thereabouts. And then I think they'll really grow into it as the second half of the season comes through.
Well, I think, that's a pretty positive way to end this chunk of the pod, if you like.
I've always got to give an overly positive prediction, and it didn't go too bad for me last year. So I'm seeing if I can manifest. I'm working out if the football gods might have accidentally tapped into my, radio
it's
airwaves.
that energy, isn't it? Just putting that energy out into the universe, seeing if it comes back to us.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think we'll be all right. I do think we'll be okay, and we're going to talk about the league in the preview later on in the pod, but it's a very open race this season, I think, for sure. And there's no reason why we can't be at the forefront of that for a large chunk of it. As you said, Ross, still a lot of good players. I think there's a lot of unknown quantities. Exciting for me, really, really exciting. It's a little bit based on where he was last year positionally. So there's a lot of positives to look forward to. Just a couple of little news bits before we wrap this part of the pod up. Just signed a new deal with Priced Up, which is a betting company. I think it's for 2 years, which is an interesting one. We talked about this a little bit in the group chat earlier. There was some quite strong feelings about it being a betting company and how that looks with football in general, and the kind of the grip, if you like, that those companies have on sport. Of course, we play in the Sky Bet, League One, which is an interesting focal point for the league to be associated with, but that's where we are. Any thoughts on that at all, really, from either of you, in terms of having a betting company once again sort of linking up with us?
I think it's the realities of modern football. It's happening so much over here right now too, with lots of betting companies sponsoring professional teams and things like that. And it was only a few years ago we had Casumo, I think, was the last betting company brand that we had on there. Yeah, I mean, Wim, you made a really good point earlier, kind of talking about how it's fine to bring investors in and things like that, but revenue at the club has to go up as well. If you want to be able to spend in this day and age because of profit sustainability rules and things like that. And I think that I'd love every sponsor to be some sort of thing that aligns perfectly with all of my beliefs and things like that. But I think it's football, it's a big entertainment product, and you're fishing in the corporate world and the entertainment world a lot of the time, and this is where you end up.
Yeah, very much agree with Ross. And as always, #GambleAware.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we always have one. We always have one of those. But yeah, absolutely #GambleAware. Purple Turtle's currently going on as we speak. We're kind of, myself and Wim are looking at feeds.
I'm just looking at the two of you. I'm just in.
You should just come back to Twitter, mate.
Hammering F5.
Nah.
Come back to Twitter. Big blue bird.
Come on over to Bluesky. While you guys are not doing the podcast and looking at the Twitter, somebody, I think it was Gav, I can't remember his full handle, but he's done a wonderful service. He's gone and made a RSS feed for Reading related news on Bluesky. There's a lot of developer functions and fun things like that on Bluesky, because it's open source. But in any case, there is now kind of like more Reading news being sort of just like promoted or like pushed onto the platform for us to like discuss things on. So we, the platform or the community, the Reading community on there is growing a little bit. come and join us. I popped I always put my Bluesky in the podcast description, and I put the RSS feed where you can kind of get that Reading news sent to your Bluesky timeline on my page. So yeah, come and join us. It's fun over there. We're not there's been a lot of like frustration about the signings, right? Like you talked about at the start of this. We're literally not freaking out in the slightest over there. And I know that's because, we've got, lots of other things to worry about, like reading The Guardian or whatever. But like, we're having a lovely old summer, personally.
Are you on commission for Bluesky?
No, I just want more people to talk to on there. That's basically it. And it's a real, like I say,
be careful what you wish for on that. It was all I will say.
That's fair, actually. That's a good point. Yeah, maybe I've walked off to my gated community and I'll say flighty things about how it would be wonderful if everyone was over here, but I don't mean it. I'm a cafeteria Republican or whatever.
Yeah, and that's with any social media. It's always worth remembering. No matter, it's largely an echo chamber, isn't it? You'll see someone gain quote unquote massive traction on X by having 100 likes, and then you realize we've got a fan base of 20,000 people. So
yeah,
if someone said, 0.01% of Reading fans think this, you in just a news article, you wouldn't pay that much attention to it. So, and again, not dismissing any particular opinion or any poster on X, but always just try and get out there. What do the kids say these days? Touch grass.
Right. Yeah.
And
yeah, they do. Well, talking of original media, so it's always Sim that gets asked to do these things, but every year 442 magazine, which has been going for like 30 years now, Wimb, it's massive, isn't it?
He took it. I used to do them, and then obviously when I stepped away, I said, "Here, have this far better writer than me."
Yeah. Well, their season previews out. I think it's $6.99. Got it from a popular news agent on the high street, which I mentioned for legal reasons.
News.
Yeah. But we're in this. Tilehurst and Sim's done a piece that he does, every year for the season preview. I won't read the whole thing because it will waste you spending $6.99. But
yeah,
where is it? Hold on.
Well, hang on a minute. Yeah, I was going to say
he thinks we'll finish fourth, and 442. I think the predictions were done by our friend Gabriel Sutton. He thinks we'll finish 7th overall.
Okay.
It's not a bad return, is it? Really, split the difference, call it 6th. I guess
that's about. I mean, like a lot of people last year were predicting us to finish, like 15th, 17th, and then we finished 7th. So if we could apply the same maths, we're going to finish minus 3rd this year.
Yeah.
And just on the kind of anymore, we've passed that. We've passed that era.
Yeah, exactly right. Well, one thing that won't happen is we won't get a points deduction. So that's.
Don't say that. Why are you saying
terrible
that?
Well, it's not going to happen, is it? Rob won't let that happen. Can you imagine
What's
the
embarrassment? Funniest way we could get an embargo?
Have we still not got a suspended? Have we still got a suspended deduction for the Port Vale thing?
Yeah, just don't run a pitch, guys.
Just don't run a pitch, guys. Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
But just from a sentimental point of view, Wim, obviously we always talk about this, and we said it at the start about this. Being the house that you built with Johnny and other people as well. Does it give you a sense of pride and satisfaction that these things are still going on in terms of, Sim representing the Tilehurst end and, it going from strength to strength and, the opportunities that generally the organisation, we're not organized, but you know what I mean, in terms of the group has had over the years based on what you started it from.
Oh, massively. And look, I registered the domain name and got some people together and kicked things off, but it wouldn't be still going if it wasn't for Sim and it wasn't for the two of you and other people like that. And all I ever wanted, the whole idea behind the Tilehurst end was that there wasn't anything really like that on the internet at the time. There was Hobnob Anyone. The Whiff, the fanzine had just died or was just about to die. I think they might have been about to put out their final issue. And so there was just no real place. A few people had like Tumblrs, if you can remember that far back. And there was the odd Facebook fans group page stuff, but there was nothing for kind of like long form analysis. It was just kind of a bit of a gap in the market. And I just thought, I never made any money out of it. But I just thought from a media point of view, I was keen to keep that side of my game sharp and setting it up. And yeah, it gives me a massive sense of pride to see that it's still going. I mean, I remember doing the season the first time we did the Tilehurst End podcast was for the 2013-14 season after we got relegated. So the fact 12 years later, we're sat here talking about Reading on a Tilehurst End podcast, and we're into the 400s is absolutely ridiculous. And it's I said, it's testament to all of you guys and to everybody that continues to read the content, view the content. And, you know, I will just say, and I know Sim would say the same, if you are interested, if you're out here listening and you thought, do you know what, I've always fancied writing about X, or just a one-off article, or looking back on something or whatever, please use the resource that the Tilehurst End is. It's got a team who are able to help people along with little things like editing and formatting and things like that. And we've got the ability to put in Getty images and fun things like that. So use it, the tilehurstend@gmail.com. Please just get in touch. I would love to be sat here in another 10, 12 years talking about it. But this is very much, if I built the house, I very much sold it. I'm living off in the podcast retirement home with Mark Mayo and Ollie and everyone like that, and I'm just, you know, watching like a proud parent as you guys do all the work. So yeah, it's fantastic that it's still going. The fact that we're, you know, 14 years after the website started, it'll be 15 by the time this season ends. Yeah, it's brilliant.
Sounds like a celebratory curries in the offing for 15 years. I tell you that, man.
I should probably get something. I did at one point. We did have a Writer of the Year award.
Interesting.
And I don't know who, and I paid to get it engraved each year, and I don't know who the last person to win it that's got it is.
Okay.
So maybe that's a mystery we can track down.
We could bring that back as you know, Pillock of the Year at Tilehurst End. Could be pretty good, I think. You know. Yeah.
But you're right. I mean, we're always looking for, and also like we always want to add to the pool of people that we have on the pod. You know, it's not. Whilst a lot of them are kind of me and Ross, we like to mix up a little bit and get other people in, and it's nice to have new people in, you know, and kind of get new ideas and new voices and different opinions and stuff. And it's just it's been fantastic to be part of. I mean, this is my 6th year of being involved now. It's been my 6th season of being involved with the Tilehurst End, which has flown by, you know. And I've loved every minute of it. I really have. So yeah, we just keep going. And as Wim said, if you're interested, you listen to this, you want to get involved, let us know. You know, we will always, you know, take it on board and get you involved. The time is 9:01 local time. This flipping shirt has still not been released yet, which has ruined the agenda. Let me just. Are you? Everyone, refresh everything. Quick.
I'm F5ing.
Yeah. I'm just watching the turtle. Yeah. I was thinking about that because the ratings are, you know, coming up for the first time, obviously, this week for Lincoln, and I was quite excited about that. And it is a lot of fun, isn't it? Just doing all the writing for the site and stuff like that.
I think it's just great to have that. I said that outlet to be able to put your stuff out there in more than 140 or 280 characters. I know there's a whole TLDR, too long didn't read mentality, and we're so used to now TikToks, YouTube shorts, I said tweets and things like that, but it is great just to have that place, and also the archive that it's built up over the years as well. I think we were talking about the game when we lost to Watford to go at the start of that 2011-12 season, and just to be able to put in Reading 0, Watford 2, the Tilehurst End, and to go back to see the gobbledygook that I wrote nearly 13 years ago, 14 years ago now. It's great to have that kind of resource and see all the opinions and things like when we do like the crystal balls of predicting where Reading players are going to be in 5 years. And again, the ability to go back and laugh at yourself. So I do hope that, a next generation and even an older generation that I'm talking about is if, you know, you have to be under 25 to write, you know, if you're in your 60s, 70s, whatever, and you want to, you know, pen down some of your memories and stuff like that. Again, it's by the fans for the fans. It's more than just a slogan or a hashtag. It's exactly why it was created. It was never a closed shop. It was never if you've got a particular opinion, you can't write for us, or, you know, we're going to filter or edit your opinions. You know, I remember being accused that our podcast was overly edited back in the day. And I can assure anybody that the only editing I ever did was to avoid Westy getting me sued.
Well, I mean, that's,
Other than that, nothing was ever edited. I can assure you, other than a few stings.
And it's we are a tight knit group. We're very, very protective over each other in that respect. But we also welcome new people into that, which is really, really positive. So get in touch if you want to do it. We're still waiting for this third shirt. We're going to go to the preview now. We're going to skip out the mailbag entirely. Really sorry about that, but I'm conscious we've been waffling on for 50 minutes and we still got the league and Lincoln to talk about. So little break. We'll be back in 2 shakes of a lamb's tail. Right, big fat preview. We called it. Oh, drop my phone. The big fat preview of the big fat year of the season, where we're going to finish second, according to Mr. Ross Webber.
Football expert, Mr. Ross Webber.
Football expert, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the league first of all before we move on to the small task of the imps. What is an imp? Is it like a devil?
It's like a little devil. Yeah. Often flying. Quite small.
Fairy.
Well, no. Well,
kind of evil fairy, isn't it?
Yeah, kind of like an evil fairy for sure. And anyway, so we stole their captain, the evil fairy captain,
Sorry,
Porty O'Connor, which is quite funny.
Right. Let's talk about the league in general. Open playing field, really. I think. Whilst we are always #gambler aware, Wimb pointed out before the pod started, so off air, basically, in the studio green room or whatever you call it, that you always follow the money in terms of where teams are going to end up. And a lot of the favourites coming out straight off the bat at the moment are Luton, Huddersfield, Stockport, Bolton, and then you've got Northampton at 100-1. So, all due respect to Northampton, I don't think they're going to win the league, are they? But there are some interesting teams there, coming down.
Can I just shock you with another prediction?
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, Northampton will end the league. They'll end the season in the Champions League spots.
Yeah, exactly.
So we've got Luton, Cardiff, and Plymouth coming down from the Championship. First of all, what particularly Cardiff, because they're under this kind of almost dreamlike state of having a bid put in by Gareth Bale's organisation to own the club. Where do we place a team like Cardiff at the moment in terms of where we're thinking they might finish? Because I don't think they're going to do very well at all at the moment.
Again, it's going to depend how they finish that window and if a takeover bid does go through. I mean, they have got obviously some fairly decent players coming down from the Championship, but yeah, I mean, look, the bookies have got them about 2-1 to go up, and I think about fourth favourites. I think that's about where they deserve to be. But as the likes of Huddersfield, Reading, Bolton, and so many other teams have found, when you come to Charlton, when you come down from the Championship, it's very rarely a straightforward stroll back up unless you're a Birmingham that really go and throw money at it. Even Wigan, who were in that lovely yo-yo position for a few years, it doesn't take much to kind of fall off that track. So I still expect them to be very strong. They still have got the lure of very good facilities, a great stadium, great fan base. Cardiff, great city to attract people to go and live in. So I would expect them to be strong. I would fancy them probably still to finish higher than Plymouth. But yeah, I think it's Luton are the favourites, and I can see why.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you look at that bracket of teams in general, Luton are going to be coming out on top. But it's a very, very difficult argument to push against them not finishing first, or at least in the top 2.
Luton. So I would have. Can I give you another team that have not part of the teams that have come down that I think are personally are the team to look out for this season? I think it's Blackpool. Blackpool have made some decent signings. Steve Bruce's Blackpool, exactly. Steve Bruce is a reasonably good manager, especially at this level for as long as he's been in the limelight and everything like that. They were playing some really nice football, in 2025, and I think that's something that really helped with Reading's decent start to the year last year, was that they played good football in 2024, and they were able then to use that momentum coming into the next season. So Blackpool for me, Luton are the only real one of the teams that have dropped down that I have even really harassing the playoff spots. I think Cardiff, it's tough when you're going through that ownership stuff, as we know. Not that we didn't, have a really good season last year. So I'm, talking out of one side of my mouth and celebrating out of the other, I suppose. But Luton are the only one out of that group that worry me. Blackpool, in terms of previously established teams or whatever, are the one that kind of look a little bit interesting to me. How do you feel about Leyton Orient coming off their playoff hangover?
I think it'll be a hangover, to be honest with you. I think the only one you're looking at from that kind of ballpark is Stockport. I think they will probably go again. They looks like they've signed some all right players, and they've had a lot. They're one of those teams that I don't pay huge attention to, but they're always kind of there or thereabouts on the X feed in terms of we signed this player and this player's coming.
Stockport are heavily the statisticians' favorite for this season to finish first. Just as a point of aside, depending on how much stock you put in stats, but they have Opta has Stockport down with a 33% chance to go up this year. Based on performances last year and things like that.
Yeah, I think losing their key loan players, I think, is really going to stitch Leyton Orient up, and I think that's the kind of I think the Coegs, aren't they? They're friends with the Orient owners, and I think they'll probably be taking a large slice out of their book. I imagine the Reading will be trying to elevate themselves towards the end of that window by making those key signings, getting, you would like to think actually by getting a pre-season friendly with Spurs, and you love to hope that Noel Hunt had a decent conversation with Thomas Frank and Carey with the people at Tottenham to get a couple of their top loan players in, maybe towards once they've had all their pre-season tour commitments over with, and that is the big problem with these days, isn't it, of signing Premier League loan players, is because they go on these money-spinning tours.
Yeah, I was just out in New Jersey that last weekend watching Bournemouth and Everton and West Ham, and these are teams that would maybe have youth players, academy players that would be appropriate as loans.
Exactly.
There's a couple of northern powerhouses from a historical point of view: Rotherham, Wigan, and Bolton. Now, Rotherham and Wigan are well below the expectations of where clubs like that should be. Traditionally, we've been fighting them out in the Championship. Obviously, Wigan were fairly well established in the Premier League for a while. But Bolton are an interesting one, aren't they? They sort of cleaned house towards the end of last season. New manager come in, quite a big changeover in players. Do you think they've got the potential to trouble the top six and possibly top two?
Always got the power and the potential, haven't they? Again, you look at Bolton, and it's a club with, as much as I hate to say it because I'm still very bitter about a playoff final literally 30 years ago. But it's a big club they've had success with in living memory, been a Premier League club 10, 15 years ago. Still got a very nice stadium. It's what is it? The Tough Sheet still.
Tough Sheet. Yeah.
Yes,
Very good. Excellently named.
And they're in that, it's what goes for and against clubs often in the Northwest, isn't it? Is, the downside is it's sometimes hard attracting fans, but it's actually good because they're able to bring in a lot of good young players from those clubs around them. It doesn't involve them moving large distances across the country and things like that. So I always worry about Bolton. I still think they've got a very strong squad. And I would expect them to be top 10 and again, there or thereabouts.
I mean, it's sometimes easy to look at the opening fixtures we've got, really. Obviously, Lincoln, which we're going to talk about in a minute. Ignore Portsmouth, thank God. Huddersfield, Wimbledon, Bolton, Wickham, Port Vale. That's August. I mean, of those teams,
it's really going to be interesting to see if Wickham's season was an aberration or if they actually are that good and they will go again. Because I think that, it's funny. I think Birmingham and Wrexham last year were teams that are not sustainable in League One. They had no plans on being in League One for more than one season. And that's obviously not here this season. There's teams that may have to take a second year in League One, from the ones that have come down as well. So I think it's kind of interesting in that regard.
Yeah, I mean, I think by the end of August, we're going to kind of know what kind of season we're in for, really. I know we say that every year, but that's quite a spread. We've got teams there that are going to struggle, or look like they're going to struggle in Wimbledon. No idea how Port Vale are going to do. Darren Moore, I think, is a fantastic manager. talked
I'm
about
excited. Wimbledon are in the league. Are you excited? I love.
and going to their ground as well. Like, it's a great place to go and watch footy. You know, it's a great
see if
place.
you can get into that apartment of the flat building where you can see into the ground from the break in.
Get arrested and sacked? No thanks.
Sacked from the Tilehurst podcast.
I was thinking more of a professional job, but don't
no.
worry.
Don't worry about that.
But you know, and then even September, Northampton, Barnsley, Leyton Orient, and Stockport. That's they're quite difficult opening months. You know, for a team that's still building and still, you know, straight out of the Lego box and trying to be made into something. So I think it's going to be interesting, really. All that interest, of course, starts with Lincoln at home. Lincoln are at home. We are away. That's how football tends to work. We are the away team, just to confirm. 3 p.m. kickoff at the LNER Stadium because they like trains up there.
They do.
And that's why Sim loves this one because he loves a train. I'm not going to ask you about Lincoln and where we think they're going to finish because I've literally no idea, quite frankly, with all due respect to Lincoln. Do we think that the starting 11 that started on Saturday in the friendly will be the one that starts at Lincoln this coming Saturday?
Yeah, probably. I'm trying to think. I can't really.
Depends on Nibs, doesn't it? Really, what the whole situation's going on with Harvey. You would think if this bid has properly collapsed and it's not just a short-term hiccup, that Noel would. I think he said in his interview today that he'll be having kind of conversations with him about bringing him back into the fold. So look, if he plays, he'll certainly. If he's available, he'll certainly come into that starting lineup as in some part of the forward line.
I'd be a little bit concerned there because not that Harvey isn't a fantastic player. He is, obviously. But just I remember that Sam Smith had a really, really great 2024. And the 1 month that wasn't so great for him was August when he was sort of the subject of bids then. And obviously then did go a little bit later. And so I guess that's where I think maybe if I was Noel, I'd start with the same lineup. But it's tough because that lineup just lost technically, just lost 4-0. So it kind of depends how much stock you put in that. But yeah, it would be interesting to see how Harvey deals, if he does play, how he performs and how he deals with the pressure of potentially moving away, a few days later.
I just don't put any stock into the preseason game. I watched the goals again just before coming on here, and it had that air of training game. Like they weren't busting the gut to get to the put their bodies on the line and stuff like that. So and I don't put too much stock.
Interesting comments today from Noel about bringing players in, or a player potentially tomorrow. Unless it's someone who's been in and around the club, I can't see them starting on Saturday, surely, because they would have worked on shape, which Nibs
would have to be someone who's League One proven. Like, let's say Reading sign a League One proven number 9 or centre forward or something like that. I think Reading would drop him into the lineup right away over Marco Mani personally, but I don't think that kind of signing is coming. So I don't think it matters.
Yeah, I know Devante Cole was one of the names bounded around earlier this week. It seems to have gone a bit colder, but that is the kind of player that has played hundreds of games at this level that you could just slot straight in,
right?
And just hit the ground running. But I agree with you. If it's a player from overseas or maybe a younger player from a Premier League or a Championship side, I don't think you would go straight into that lineup on Saturday. Definitely from the bench. But yeah, I think I agree with Ross. It has to be a no-nonsense established name if they want to actually take part on Saturday.
I'm really hoping we see Garcia at right wing on Saturday. I'm kind of hoping that is something that we're going to see throughout August. I think there's a lot of potential there, and maybe I'm wrong, but he just seems like he's taken the Saka highway to me. He started as an academy player or whatever as a left back, or after transitioning, back further in his youth, and now he's moving into that sort of right wing position. I'd really like to think that this is Garcia's season, and I want to see him start at right wing on Saturday.
He is probably that. I know I talked earlier in the show about that. It'd be nice to have that big name attacking player, but the more Ross talks about it, the more you think, is he going to have that breakout? Is he going to have that kind of Michael Olise style breakthrough? And we could be talking about a really special player, forgetting the fact he's not even 18 until November. but already with 40 odd senior games and, you know, a full year training with the first team behind him, it's exciting to think what he could do.
Yeah, it's hard to not to get carried away sometimes thinking about him. But yeah, we haven't replaced Femi Aziz still, and I just wonder if Garcia is the replacement.
I think he can be better than Femi Aziz, to be honest, as long as he's given a run and they don't, you know, he's going to get smacked about quite a lot on a pitch. You know, he's very light, and he's gonna piss people off, to be honest. You know, those kind of grizzled vets in League One in terms of defending. But as long as he stays injury free and he's given a run in the team and he doesn't keep looking over his shoulder, and that is the one thing Noel Hunt has done with these players. He doesn't put them under kind of stress and pressure that maybe Sellers did, in terms of, right, you have half an hour and you're not doing well, whatever, then you're out and that's the next game gone for you. But Savage, really good example of that. You know, he's a player that's just come on strength for strength because he's not constantly looking over his shoulder in a negative way. But Garcia, I think, is one of those players that really needs to be nailed on and needs to be given the opportunities.
Well, I'm really excited. I think the one thing Reading struggled with as well last year was against back threes. You know, they really struggled to create much goal. And I wonder if, you know, Garcia in that right wing spot, you know, between the left center back and the left wing back could cause a lot of trouble for opposition teams, could kind of unpick that a little bit, where we were looking for some creativity and just not getting it really. So yeah. Anyway, I'll stop talking about the 17-year-old.
I think it's a big season for Long Kelvin as well. He's got his contract, he's settled. You know, he maybe
towards
the end of last year. Exactly right. Had his injury problems to the end of last season, but was quite inconsistent, to be honest. You know, we did a bit of analysis on him a few pods back, so go and check that out if you want to. But it's a big season for him. You know, he's now becoming one of the senior players in the team. I think it's a big season for Kelvin Abrafa as well. I wasn't impressed with him at all on Saturday. He's got a lot of competition. You know, I don't think Yids will play a lot. I think he's been given a contract to keep him around the place, which I think is sensible, to be honest. But he's not going to be playing a lot of football this year. And then of course you got Ahmed, who was very, very good against Spurs for the 20-30 minutes that he played. Comes very, very highly rated. And then of course the other end is left back. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how that pans out over the next 2 or 3 weeks in terms of those starters. We don't normally do this, as you all know, Wim, if you listen regularly, but we are going to do a score prediction for the game.
A score prediction.
Well, sometimes it has to happen, Ross. Sometimes, like we can write agendas and we can stick to the script, but sometimes it's got
to prise that thing open and just perform open heart surgery on the podcast.
Exactly right. Massage a result out of something.
Right.
So, we used to run the prediction league, and again, used to get to the end of the season and find it was really, what always fascinated me with the prediction league is how much you get wrong.
Yeah,
like you would think even just getting the 1 point for the result, you would think, oh, I'm easily going to pick up at least 30 odd points. You'd end the season with 22 points. You'd be like, okay.
And do you know what? We started, I mean, the Championship, I think, was easier to predict than League One. It honestly, it's been impossible. Some of the results last season, you just wouldn't have looked at and gone, yeah, that'll happen.
Yeah.
So when we'll come to you first of all, result. And
this
score, please.
This has got 0-0 written all over it, so I'm going to say 0-0.
Oh, yeah, really? You know, nothing.
I can see it happening.
I think Noel Hunt is going to set Reading up to be very hard to beat on Saturday, which is, I think, the approach they should be, because they haven't got enough reinforcements in that forward area. I think, as Ross said, that the midfield and the defence does look actually quite good without any more additions. So I think, knowing Noel, so especially the way they went away from home a lot, the back end of last season, you think of the games against the likes of Charlton, setting up to be very hard to beat. I think they'll do exactly the same again on Saturday, and I think we should all be very happy if Reading come away with a point.
I'm just a little bit distracted because
I'm going to give my prediction while you do that. All right, we'll talk about this afterwards. Let's get through the predictions, and then we'll talk about it.
The third out, and it is an absolute.
All right, don't give your opinion. Oh, it's a stonker. Okay, well, hang on, slow down. We're in the predictions right now. Look at this, listeners. I can't keep them corralled. Stop looking at the shirt. Send a picture of it to all of us. Let me get through my prediction. All right, I think it's going to be 1-1. I'm kind of on the same page as Wim. that will be set up to be very hard to beat right now. I think Reading might have a tricky first half here, whereby it's not as coherent as it could be, or cohesive defensively. But I think, and so I could see Reading going behind at some point in this game. But I think if you can seize control slowly, I'm not sure if you can seize something slowly, but if you can, I think Reading will slowly seize control of this game. Lincoln have lost some good players this summer, and so I think that will start to set them back as the game goes on, because they are also dealing with a new setup. And things like that. Got a good coach though, Lincoln, so maybe they've got it all worked out already. But yeah, I see Reading could go behind here. I think Reading will probably finish the game relatively on top and probably get at least an equalizer.
I think we win.
Okay, nice.
I
love it.
I think it's written. I think we start a new era with a win. I do, and I think a little bit like the preseason to some extent, you can't really take much stock. What's that old saying? The table doesn't look right until August or September, whatever it is, something along those lines. But I think we'll win. And if we're wearing this absolute beast of a shirt, I mean, that is unreal. Have you seen it, Wim?
I've seen it, but not only that, they've just teased a signing.
No, they have not.
Yeah, they've just literally within a minute ago posted a video of someone walking up onto the stage doing the ding.
All right.
Oh, was that on Twitter that Ross isn't on? Because I didn't.
X as of 1 minute ago, so we might have to do some stalling here until we find out who is it. I don't know. They've just posted the ding thing. What they've been doing with the bell when they make a signing.
So my reaction, the shirt.
I like the kit.
Yeah.
The kit is basically like it's got red. It's like, isn't it good?
Yeah, it's really nice.
Leafy, it's got like red accent. Leafy. Yeah, what's
really
the backstory behind it? When people go, I've had enough now, and like I don't want to listen to these three people waffling. This was not on the agenda. This should have been ages ago.
Yeah, so if you came for analysis, you can bugger off now because we're all done.
Joe Jacobson just got on the mic and he's gone, we've got a signing.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, that's unreal. Yeah. What a night. And we're here talking about women.
It's the unprofessional Joe podcast. It's
all right. I paused the recording there and then restarted because Ben was getting overexcited about the kit on our audio podcast. But it's a lovely one, and go check that out. There's more news, isn't there?
There is. If enthusiasm is a disease, don't give me the vaccine.
Yeah.
So there we are. We've signed an actual physical player, Paddy Lane. Wim's got all the details, haven't you, Wim?
I wish I had all the details. He's literally developing as we speak. So yeah, Paddy Lane has been signed. We at the time of recording this, we're still yet to hear whether it's a permanent or a loan. By the time I finish this very sentence, we might know, we might not. But look, he's played for Portsmouth, played a lot of games at this level. He's played over 100 games in League One. I know we were talking, Ross, about that player who's played in League One that can come straight into a team. I think this fits the bill there. He's played the 60 games in League One for Fleetwood, and nearly the same amount for Portsmouth as well. Had a really good season the year Portsmouth went up. Scored 12 goals in 42 games.
From way less XG, by the way. I'm just looking now. He had from 7 XG, he scored 12 goals. So that's overscoring your XG. You must have scored some absolute bangers.
Yeah, apparently his first goal against Portsmouth came against Wickham. So Joe Jacobson has clearly seen him up close, been skinned by him, and has thought, we need to sign this player. The Brian McDermott scouting method when we signed Hope Akpan and Nick Blackman when they played against us in the Cup that year. So look, you talk about experience. He's only 24 as well, so he's not at that peak point. He's listed more as a winger than a forward, so he does very much fit that kind of replacing the likes of Chem Campbell. So yeah, again, if you were looking for that experience side, an international player as well, I don't think you can be upset with this one.
No, yeah.
Well, I mean, I can't. I'm getting a bit clammy on the front of the forehead at the moment. It's quite. Ross has got us finishing second. We've got an absolutely stunning third kit. We've just signed a striker / winger. Unreal. It's like the best day ever. Honestly,
everything you could want. Everything you can want. And he's from the island of Ireland. I don't even know. Not from
I don't
Republic
know.
of
Well,
Ireland.
apparently born in Halifax. So,
Oh, wow. Bit different then, I suppose.
We've all got Gaelic blood. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Good signing, and hey, maybe that blows up the Garcia chat we were just having. But hey, what can you do? We're going down the Paddy Lane now.
Listen, before we go, I think it's really, really fitting that we end the pod. And as regular listeners will know, I could not care less about England football at national level. But what the Lionesses have been able to achieve over the last few weeks, and going into the tournament as well, has been nothing short of outstanding. And you want to look at a team that is together. You want to look at, players that lead by example. You want to look at sparking a renaissance. That team has done it not once but twice, and they are an absolute credit to this country. I think they're an absolute credit to themselves. To be honest, the audacity to go and do it again, and all these firsts, doesn't matter if you're men or women, all these firsts in terms of just being an England player and wearing, that famous white shirt, unreal. And what we all hope, at the Tilehurst end, and I hope the wider fan base as well, is that it sparks a huge increase in interest in the women's team. They've announced today they're going to play in the FA Cup, which is a fantastic opportunity for them. Signed an awful lot of players. Got a brand new coach coming in. We talked previously about how well Pedro had done, but Ed Jackson coming in, fantastic guy. Really good team behind him as well. And I don't want people to think that we're forgetting about Reading women, because we're definitely not. But a little bit like this pod, we're kind of waiting until they're good to go with their season before we open it up and we get, the legend that is Peter Matthews on, and hopefully Abby as well, if she's around to do that, and just really have a deep dive into the women's team. Their season tickets are 30 quid, which is unreal for an adult. Yeah. Like you'd almost just do that and go to one or two games. So they're on the way back, really. And that's
and
really
I think if you think about since the last Euro win, like Reading's women's setup has gone in the opposite direction to where the rest of women's football has gone, really. And it's just good to see the Lionesses win and continue that momentum, I think, with women's football. And hopefully it just stays, in a way whereby Reading can continue to jump up the divisions.
Yeah, and I've seen it firsthand this summer, the power of that Lionesses team, because my daughter, who is 7 now, she's had her season ticket sitting next to me for, 3 seasons now. So she's no stranger to football. And as she's got a little bit older, she pays a little bit more attention to what's going on. Still has to, spend a good at least half an hour or so on her iPad at a game. But this summer, through all the women's matches, she was absolutely glued. And seeing her face, she learned all the players' names. She was loves Alicia Russo. And she's like, oh, that's Lauren. Oh, that's Alicia.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. And that the enthusiasm that she's had coming off of that, it's gonna be really sad for me to then have to drag her along to back to Reading
days. 3 years, she's no stranger to misery, is she? But,
exactly. So and that was it did really. That tinge of sadness as well, because if this had been like you said, Ross, this had been 3 years ago, I could have then said, do you know what, we get to watch Reading play against those teams, and now it's like, with again all the love and respect, going to watch 5th tier women's football is just not the same. But here's hoping that we can get back to a decent level. And again, massive credits to them. You talk about role models, and you literally cannot ask for a better group. So it was a great summer.
And congratulate, as much as it pains me to say that, at least we lost to the eventual winners. I suppose that's a positive, isn't it, really?
That's true. Yeah. So I hope you enjoyed that, Reading fans. The victory over Wales after this man wore a Netherlands shirt on the podcast exactly right. At that time. But I hope you enjoyed the Lionesses' victory and had a lovely time watching that. And now you're all being dragged, kicking and screaming into a Lincoln away game that begins the next 46.
Listen, have a good week. Have a good weekend. If you listen to this hungover from last night, I hope it was worth it. It looked like a great night. The shirt is fantastic. There's a lot of positivity again, which is what we want to see. A lot of openness from the club with good people there. So onwards and upwards. That starts with Lincoln I was going to say home again, away on Saturday. Kick off the 25-26 Sky Bet League One season, 3 o'clock. It's live on Sky, I think, as well, isn't it? Is it live on Sky? Possibly, maybe, don't know. But yeah, we're good to go. We're ready. I hope you are too. Wim, thank you so much for joining us on this special preview. We will see you again very soon. Ross, I will see you next week. Have a lovely weekend, everybody, and come on, you Oz.